State. They have some interesting decisions to make in the near future, but Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta might have inadvertently given us a little nugget or two. Says Houston must re-sign Chris Paul and wants to keep Clint Capella, who'll be a restricted free agent this summer. But keep in mind, if they do both, it'll be difficult to sign a guy named LeBron James. Chris, I'll start with you. Would the Rockets be making the right move bringing back the same team next year?
Well, to me, I'm concerned about Chris Paul. I'm concerned about any guard that gets into his 30s, undersized guards in the NBA. They probably have the shortest shelf life of great players. If you say, okay, now I'm going to get an aging player. You want a point guard, a two guard, a three, a four, a five. The least, number 5, would be the point guard. All right, that's the guy, he wears out quick in his career. They lose their legs. That's why we're worried about Kyrie. They're in Boston with the multiple knee surgeries that he's had. So I'm concerned about Chris Paul being tied to him for the next 4 or 5 years. Because if you have an aging Chris Paul, you have Harden as your two guard or a point guard. So how good can you be defensively? How good is Chris Paul going to be as a defensive stopper? Now, he can be a spot-up shooter, but you can't be a defensive stopper but for so long. And you got Harden. So for me, how close are they to Golden State if they can't get better defensively at the point guard? So I'm concerned about that. I would try to go after LeBron. I wouldn't try to bring this team back as it is. I would try to bring back LeBron as a piece of this team. And if I couldn't get LeBron, I would try to bring it back as close as I can. You get into a situation with Capella, a lot like Tristan Thompson was a couple of years ago, where you have a certain amount of synergy, not only in this locker room, but the way they play basketball. And he has benefited from being with Harden, starting to learn the system. He's only getting better. Is he worth a max contract? I don't think he's worth a max contract. Would he take less than that to stay in Houston? That would be what I would be trying to do, and I believe that's what's on their books to try to get done.
The number one option would be and is, and I believe the Rockets are trying to set this into motion as soon as the season ends, getting LeBron James. The number one option is to get LeBron. If they get LeBron, they will be bringing back Chris Paul.
Wait, can they afford LeBron? First things first.
Well, listen, they can't. It will be almost impossible to keep Capella, CP3, and LeBron.
Okay.
But Capella would be the odd man out in that scenario. LeBron and Chris Paul are super close friends.
Do you need a center in the West, though?
Right.
That's why you can let Capella go.
Okay.
And so their number one objective, I believe, before this year, during this year, was to try to add LeBron James when it looked like, the Cavs are a mess. Like, is he potentially on the trade block? Certainly this offseason is to go get LeBron James. I believe that the Rockets felt at one point this year they would be the favorites this summer to get LeBron James. The only LeBron complicating factor is this. The last time LeBron had a free agent decision, he took forever on it.
But he did make it dramatic, so that was good.
Well, listen, he took forever on it.
Free agency opens July 1st.
Right.
And I think he did the first deal July 9th and the next deal July 10th.
I can't remember the first deal, but the next, the one to go back to Cleveland, you're exactly right. He waited a week and a half. And all of NBA free agency was in a freeze because you had deals. The Cavs had Gordon Hayward agreed to terms. We're like, we can't sign you yet because we got to keep this cap space open for LeBron. So that's the complicating factor. As far as people might think, Tillman Fertitta, Daryl Morey can't like that you're telling the world we have to bring Chris Paul back. Listen, Chris Paul does not agree to the trade that he agreed to go to Houston, unless technically this is against the NBA rules, but this happens. There is an agreement in place because he turned down an extension from the Clippers in order to go to Houston. There is an agreement in place. We are going to give you a max extension on the back end of this. Now, is that concerning long term? Absolutely. If they do that, that is because they feel, you know what? The number you kept pointing out that I brought up the 65 wins, Chris. The other number I brought up was 53-7 this year, 50-5 going into the Warriors series with CP3, Harden, and Capella. Obviously, they didn't have CP3 the final 2 games. They believe this core can win a championship, but the concerns about how many games are you going to get from a healthy Chris Paul, that's a real one, and you just got to roll the dice with it.
And if LeBron decides to play with Chris Paul in Houston, is LeBron in the same situation he was in with D. Wade? A guy's one of his best friends. They come into the league together. They're very, very close. But LeBron was not happy with how many games D. Wade missed at the end of his Miami career.
Correct.
And that's one of the reasons why he left Miami. He couldn't depend on Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh didn't like playing the 5. He was playing out of position. We didn't know Chris Bosh was going to get sick and everything afterwards, but he was concerned about D. Wade and D. Wade's knees and his inability to play potentially 70 games a year.
With what you saw from the Rockets, knowing that they probably could have beaten, if they wanted to, if they had Chris Paul, could have beaten the Warriors. Do you think they could come back with the same group next year and do it? I mean, if they
Absolutely.
don't get LeBron, you have no problem with
choice.
having to add anything?
But Jen is asking, if they bring it back, could they beat the Warriors? And my answer is absolutely. They could. Now, they had a perfect storm this year. The Warriors dealt with injuries during the regular season, which allowed the Rockets to secure the 1 seed more easily. But no matter who they bring back, unless they get LeBron, you want to know what the key to the Rockets offseason is? Figuring out how James Harden can go a tick above. It is not a coincidence that James Harden's 3 best games of the playoffs were the 3 game ones of each series, when he had the most days off leading into it. It is not a coincidence that James Harden faltered down the stretch of these playoff games and down the stretch of these series. Part of that's the workload, but part of that also is, of all the true superstars in the league, LeBron, KD, Steph, Russ, Giannis, Anthony Davis, Harden, those 7 guys, let's be fair, who's in, do you think, the worst shape? Who has the least endurance? Who has the least cardiovascular strength? Now, Harden has a very heavy workload. And I'm not saying he's out of shape, but by NBA superstar standards, he could tick it up a level. That's up to him this offseason.
Yeah, I don't consider him to have a heavy workload because most of all what he's doing, he's playing in the high pick and roll. All he's doing is dribbling the ball. That's not strenuous. Because if you're a two-way player playing defense and everything, that's not as strenuous as some of the other things the superstars are doing. He needs to be in better shape. All right? If he wants to be an elite player, and the reason why we never consider, is he the second best player in the world? We never even talk about Harden. And that's one of the reasons.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, let's talk some football. Here's a loaded question. Can Brandon Marshall help fix the Seahawks offense next season? Yes, the same Brandon Marshall you're thinking. Is it the same Brandon Marshall? Yes. Next on First Things First.